Now, number seven, light weights tone, heavy weights build muscle. I'm conscious of time, so we shall continue on here. And what we see is there's this thought that doing high rep workouts will tone or burn fat more than lifting heavier weights, right? Or that lifting with super high rep workouts will tone the muscles without getting bulky, right? And ultimately, this I think is similar to what Marvin was saying earlier, just in terms of the tanning analogy, right? In order for your muscle to change, there has to be a stimulus which it needs to adapt to. So just like if you're in the sun in the summer in Jeddah, your body has to get more tanned to, outlast the sun. Whereas if you are doing tiny sort of pink 1 kilo dumbbells, the stimulus isn't sufficient to promote a change in the muscle. Your muscle can do it easily. So why is it going to change or tone in relation to doing that? And again, this comes from the fear of muscle gain, the marketing towards women as to what they should be doing, because women physiology needs something different to male physiology. The bodies work in the same way, besides obviously the hormonal elements affecting things. And why is it a myth? Is muscle growth can occur with both lighter and heavier weights when the effort is high enough, when you are lifting with a degree of intensity. So muscle has been shown to be able to be built from as little as 3 reps all the way through to like 30 reps. So if you're doing 30 reps and you're getting to the point where you physically can't lift anymore, that is going to be sufficient to build muscle. But a lot of the time, people don't get there. They do a set of 10 and it's easy, and then they rest and then they go again. We've spoken a lot about toning. It's not some sort of separate physiological process. Muscles either get bigger or they get smaller. Same thing with the body fat over the muscle. It either hides the muscle or shows the muscle or makes the muscle more visible. And why, or what is the truth? It will unsurprise to you that I think we'll kind of go into this in a moment, is that, reps, or let's do it now, actually. So here, you've seen this before. And so if we have, say, a set of 12, right, we want you to be getting here by the end of the set, right? The first couple reps are going to be easy. They're going to be comfortable. Then the speed starts to slow down and you're starting to kind of fight the weight, right? And then the last few reps of the set is where like things slow down. You're fighting, you're thinking of someone who's pissed you off in the day, your jaw clenches, you can't hide the fact that it's a struggle, right? And this really is where we want to be in order to change our bodies. And I think just quickly on one of these points, and I didn't know when to mention this in the call, but I remember there was a girl, a sort of super sort of famous fitness influencer who I kind of knew back in my sort of London days. So that would have been like 8 or 9 years ago. And she at the time had like 1 million followers on Instagram, right? She's in fantastic shape. She would come in with her boyfriend at the time, and they would record a series of, workouts that people can do. All of them are those classic social media type exercises, super, super, super light weights. And, the sort of association is that she built this body by doing these things, right? Super light weights, super high reps, funky exercises, etc. And so once the filming was done, she would then get on with her workout. Her workout, heavy barbell squats, deadlifts, leg press, pushing everything up till failure. So the image of what looks good on social media was very different to what in reality she was doing to achieve the body that she has. So it's funny, sort of, Marvin, I'm sure you're the same. When we start potentially with clients or we work with people, sometimes, they share a picture of the body that they want, right? And 9 times out of 10, this body is achieved through years and years and years of strength training, lean builds, fat loss phases. It's a journey, right? And just because they look in shaped, right? It's not just in relation to body fat. Obviously, there's a muscle component there, and that muscle component comes from strength training and lifting for hard reps. Hard reps send a message.
Yeah, for me, the interesting thing is the context, Pete, where, a lot of some of these, like, that's a classic example, right, that you've just mentioned. In other cases, you have these like fitness influencers or like very popular people in the fitness space that were athletes from the age of 14, 15, 16, and were doing very complex movements, strength training, eating well, like performing at a very high level. And so they built a level of physique that they were able to achieve, and they've been able to somewhat maintain the level of muscle and leanness that they built during those times. And now they show a completely different side in terms of what they do in their training. And the assumption is that person looks like this because they do this, but they probably look like this because they did this other thing for 10 or 15 years before, what they're showing you now for the last 2 years.
Mate, it's literally been sort of my experience with getting into running. How many times do you run? Sort of, what are you eating? What are you training? And it's like I still train 4 or 5 times a week in the gym, and I run sort of once or twice. Just because you're seen doing a certain thing or eating a certain way, that doesn't sort of give you the idea of what's happening for the last 10 years or what's happening for the other 80% of the time during the week, for example. So again, like always have that sort of critical lens of, is this true or is it just kind of an association that this person is doing this, therefore, they look like that or whatever the equivalent is.